Welcome everybody to another episode of CEO Open Mic. This time I decided, after some time I spent in America, I decided to bring some of America here to Poland. There's nobody better than Steven Crystal to represent American view of the iGaming business. For the record, SCCG company. And you're the guy who's over 35 years in the industry. And you're the guy who invested or funded over 50 companies in the iGaming universe so far. Impressive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Nice to have you.
Nice to be here, Bartek.
So for those few people around the globe who don't know you, would you be so kind to say a few words about your history, about what do you do now, and how did you get to that point?
Great. So, in fact, this year was a milestone. I celebrated my 60th birthday.
Happy birthday.
I took myself to Iceland and decided to go slipping and sliding around glaciers and climbing around volcanoes to inaugurate that milestone. But from the time I was 25 years old and just graduated law school, I was thrust into the gaming industry, not on purpose. I didn't go to law school to become anything related to gaming, but I ended up in Kansas City, Missouri as a young lawyer. I specialized in land use, and before long, Missouri had adopted a riverboat gambling legislation, and it required a zoning lawyer to be able to certify that a riverboat would be legal upon certain real estate. Mm-hmm. And that's where I came in. And so at 26, I was writing legal opinions for a burgeoning industry, and shortly thereafter, I had an opportunity to make my first investment in gaming. It was a relatively small investment in a piece of real estate that would become Kansas City Station Casino, a $500 million riverboat complex. And we were part of the landowning group, the landlord, and that started a career that would end up taking me from that transaction to buying half of downtown Las Vegas when I was 38 years old, and employing about 7,500 people and running 6 casinos, to where I sit today in Las Vegas, partnering with over 150 of the top B2B and B2C iGaming brands around the globe on 7 continents, over 100 countries. So it started modestly, and over time it grew, mostly because I was always curious and open to seeing where it would take me.
I gotta say, that's impressive. I mean, if you like did 10% of that would already be impressive. So you're still hungry, right? You're still in the business. You're still looking for more opportunities to invest in. You're still looking for more partners to advise, right?
Well, what I tell people when they ask me, why do I still do it? After experiencing many successes and some failures along the way, I tell them very honestly, I'm not a person with hobbies. I've dedicated my life to this industry. I view it as a 24/7, 365 industry.
It is.
I'm dedicated to it. I'm energized by it every day. I love the global nature of it. So for me, it's a journey, and one that keeps me going and fresh, interested, challenged. And I think as long as I have that, I'll keep going. And so right now, there's not really any alternative calling. Maybe at some point, I'll be sitting somewhere in an airport or on an airplane or somewhere, and I'll say to myself, maybe it's time to do something else, but it's not today.
It's not today. So there's no problem with motivation. It's not that you got to some certain point in your life that you said, well, I did everything what I wanted to do. There's nothing more. I explored everything. It's still, you still want to grow, basically.
What I tell people, I'm often now, for many years I was the youngest person in the room. with people with either gray hair or no hair. I was learning from them. And then one day I woke up and I was the guy with no hair with a bunch of young people around. And what I tell them is the one rule I have is not to live with any regret. If you can live your life and do the things you want to do and not feel like you regret not doing something, that's a good life. And so for me, every day is meant for that purpose, to keep pushing the bounds and to keep doing the things that I'm curious about. And so as long as I have that curiosity, I have the motivation to go out and do something new. And in our industry, we're going to talk a little bit later about the topic of AI and how the industry is changing. You can talk about AI. You can talk about things like crypto and alternative payments. You can talk about new emerging markets. These are exciting topics, really revolutionary topics for our industry and for other industries. And that's what keeps the game fresh, understanding that.
But before we jump into that, I want to focus more on you as a person, as a human being. And I want to dive a little bit into your motivations. So is there any, like, for the guy with your experience, is there any goal that you try to achieve, or is it just purely for money, or are you still looking for some kind of unicorn that you're going to be part of and that's going to be super exciting? Like, what's your why? What's your reason of all of that?
I never do something for money. What I say is that money is a byproduct of doing something you love. If you do something you love and you do it with passion and you do it honestly, you don't look for shortcuts, but you do it the way that it was meant to be done, then you'll be a rich person. Money is a byproduct, and there are some good things you can do with it, but by and large, what motivates me now is to keep things fresh and challenging, to be around people who are trying to realize their dreams. I'll use as an example, I had an employee. He was young, but he wasn't quite fitting into the role that he was hired for. But he had a passion for logistics, trucking. Now, I'm not in the trucking business. I'm in the gambling business. But I soon learned that I had another client that is in the used slot machine business, and they ship over 30,000 slot machines every year around the world. Their logistics bill is $1 million a year in shipping just to move their slot machines. So I ended up letting this employee go, but lo and behold, he had gone to a shipping company, and it didn't work out for him, so he came back to see me. And I said to myself, well, why don't we go into the logistics business? So what I think is interesting about having 35 years experience and dozens of companies is that if you set your mind to it, you can take something new, logistics, which isn't going away last time I checked, with all the AI, with all the drones delivering this and delivering that, we still need humans. To get into a truck, load it with heavy equipment or product, and bring it to different places around the globe. And so when he came back, I said, hey, why don't you write a business plan? We'll help you. I'll back you. Let's go into the logistics business. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to formally announce that business as a new aspect of our quote-unquote managed service, to be able to help people move the goods that they manufacture to different places around the globe. And so that's what I think about when I think about keeping things fresh and keeping things challenging. Not about getting rich, no. Not about creating unicorns. That happens for just a very few people in a lifetime, and may not be in my future. But to be able to take an idea or a person, to be able to back that person, come up with a solid plan, and execute on that plan so that it pays people salary and it gives them their future. It gives them their passion. To me, that's very powerful. More powerful than a unicorn, or more powerful than making another $1 million.
So that's experiencing the growth and like setting up a plant. Like you want to see that if you take proper care of it, then it grows and you could experience it more or less.
More or less, and I would say right now where I'm at, as I look at mostly young people, because that's my focus, is trying to help the next generation. Most of it is being able to look at something and say, how do I help that to succeed? So it's kind of like reaching a time where you want to be prolific. You have developed a system, a process that works more than it doesn't work. And what you want to do is move things through that process, as many things as make sense, to make as many people realize their dreams. It's almost a form of wish fulfillment. And to have that ability and to have that knowledge is a very powerful thing.
So so basically, I suppose you would be capable of creating and writing down the framework of how to build a successful company from the day zero to wherever you want to take it, with certain steps on given moments of the company. You would be capable of doing that.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it starts with an idea. It starts with people.
Okay.
You got to have an idea that has merit, and you got to have people that are solid. Those are the two ingredients. You need capital. Nothing's for free, and bootstrapping sounds good, but you can only get so far on that. And then you need people who have skills. I learned from my mentor, big things in life take lots of people, lots of time, and lots of money. So yes, we can do small things, but I think at this stage in my life, I'm trying to do as many big things as I can before I can't do them anymore.
Mm-hmm. But so how exactly do you get involved? Say there's this guy with a great idea, and you, for some reason, you believe in that guy and his idea, and you come to understanding that you want to invest in his business. What kind of involvement the guy could count on?
The good news is, I would say before there was LinkedIn, before there was a lot of these, before there was, most of my professional career was lived without social media.
Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky me. But I did it the old-fashioned way. It started with a Rolodex or index cards. I had this uncanny ability to, if I met somebody, and I would often meet people, whether it was as a lawyer or as a politician or as a gaming executive, I met tens of thousands of people over the course of time. I didn't let go of anybody. If I met somebody, they would be in my network, and I would reach out to them, whether I had something to do with them or not. Mm-hmm. Sometimes just to say hello and to say I was thinking about you. Mm-hmm. This was the old-fashioned way of building a network.
Yeah.
And with LinkedIn and all these other tools, it has only exponentially grown that. So the good news is if I wanted to, I could sit in Las Vegas and I could have people from all over the world come to me, which they do. I happen to add to that. I happen to go out into the world. You said, let's do a podcast. And I said, well, let me come to Warsaw. Mm-hmm. Let me come to you.
I appreciate it, by the way.
Yeah,
thank you.
And I appreciate being here because that's how you make things happen. You show up. Mm-hmm. And this is what I tell people. If you want to make something happen, show up. And so because of that attitude, I have no shortage of people that end up in my funnel for purpose of looking at. And because I'm very focused in gambling, if someone has a gambling idea, 9 times out of 10, they will cross my path. Mm-hmm. They will come to me. And because I focus on early stage companies and venture, if they have an idea, they're hoping that I will embrace it with them and help make it happen. Think of Shark Tank for the gambling industry. 24/7 gambling industry. That's what I sometimes feel like sitting in my chair. The other thing is it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about, and oftentimes it's about having all the component pieces.
I would say quite often it's more important than money.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I would say the biggest disappointment in that, as I look back on it, is also the biggest promise of it, which is that it begins and ends with the people that come before you. And as we know, some people live up to their promise, some people exceed their promise, and some people fall short. And I would say I do take it personally, even to this day, when I invest time in a young person, only to see that they fall short. They don't follow through. They don't step up. They don't honor their word. These are things that no contract, no set of documents can fix. You have to be an honorable person to do good things. And so I would say when I look back at 35 years of doing this, the common ingredient is when I did it with honorable people, good things happen, more or less. And if I did it with people that were less than honorable, of which there are many, good things did not happen. And so when I go out and meet people, which is why I don't believe in doing things virtually, I believe in the old-fashioned way of sitting and looking in the eyes of the person I'm going to do business with, I can tell a lot after 35 years who are going to be the honorable people. Who's the person who's going to be there if something doesn't work out, to look the other investors in the eye and say, look, it didn't work out, but I have another deal I'm going to do, and I'm going to include you in that deal because I want you to be whole from our venture.
I have this little saying. I'll try to translate it from Polish to English with Alex, who's my business partner. We say that it doesn't really matter what you're doing. It matters with whom you're doing that thing. And that's exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
At the moment, let's say for the last 1 or 2 years, is there any particular profile of the companies that you, in iGaming universe, that you believe in more than the others? Like something that I really don't want to say it, but I will say it. If the company has AI in its name, is it like for you that's a signal that, hey, there's a high probability that this particular type of the company will succeed, and that gets you interested?
Look, obviously AI is a buzzword, and the reason it's a buzzword is because it is integral to the evolution of where companies need to go in order to achieve operational efficiencies and operational enhancements. So, and particularly in our industry, which is focused on marketing, for the most part, directly to consumers who have choices where to spend their discretionary dollars, it is super important that we use all of the technology that's available to make that experience both personalized and unique for each individual participant. And so, yes, I would say that if I look at the last 15 or 20 investments we've made, all of them, every single one of them has had a strong AI component. Okay. So it's not only because it's popular, but it's because it's a reality of where the market is. If I look at the 150 companies that we support in different ways, I would say a good 30 to 40% of them have AI as the main USP, unique selling proposition of their product. Why? Because one of the other factors is we don't have as many qualified people to do the things that we used to have. We have, in some respects, it's a form of labor shortage, either because people don't want to do it or we don't have enough of them. So what we need to do is use technology in such a way as to deal with those gaps. The reality is when we use those technologies that are enhanced by AI, we're actually creating new opportunities for people to get even better paying jobs, helping companies operate using these tools. So we're in essence replacing lower paid jobs with higher paid jobs to realize that there is a more limited labor pool, but there's always a labor pool for higher paying jobs. And so whether I'm dealing with compliance or I'm dealing with payment technology or I'm dealing with sports betting and creating unique propositions, whether they be prediction markets or in-play betting, or whether I'm dealing with CRM and trying to create unique gamifications that will enhance retention and engagement with the player, I'm looking mostly at AI-driven tools that give the operator the data in order to make that experience special, one-to-one. And so this is a large part of what we're doing, whether we're advising companies, whether we're making investments, or whether we're supporting companies, which we often do, with a managed service program where we're helping them operate.
Mm-hmm. And how about the companies, I suppose in your portfolio, are the companies from a couple of years back, and I suppose they were not like AI driven in the first place, and at some point they had to adopt AI just to survive. At least that's my expectation. What's your take on that? I mean, how do you see those companies really adopting AI? Do they fail? Do they succeed doing that?
I mean, the reality is, and I tell this a lot, and this gets back to my investment thesis, which is the reason mostly why I invest in people and not in ideas, is that the marketplace will spit out the ideas that are vogue, that are in market for the time. So the reason you'll see a lot of AI-driven deals is because that's where the market is. Now, obviously, there's a lot of competition. There isn't just one company doing a whole area. There's lots of companies competing. And obviously, not all of them are going to succeed. And so my basic philosophy is I want to get in on it. I want to have a seat at the table. I want to be able to basically marry innovation with the brands that we work with so that we can have a real-life laboratory to innovate. But I realize at the end of the day, not everyone's going to break through. Forget about being a unicorn. What about just breaking through and raising that Series A funding so you can become a $100 million company eventually? It's not just a function of becoming a unicorn. It's a function of becoming a bona fide company that could ultimately be involved in some M&A transaction in our industry. A fraction. So if I touch 100 companies, maybe 10% will have some really good outcome or some good outcome, and 90% will not. And so you have to stand in my shoe and say, well, why would you do something knowing you're going to have a 90% failure rate? Well, you do it because you learn, because what you learn helps you be better picking, better supporting, and if you pick the right people, that person may fail at one thing but succeed at another. And so for me, it's always a good investment to invest in a good person. Because that person will stay around and do other things. And you have to play the long game. Even at 60 years old, 35 years into the industry, I can't change my scope because of my advancing experience or age in the industry. I have to remain fresh and long-term thinking in order to be successful.
So, well, the good news for the founders is that even if they fail, but they fail genuinely and genuinely trying to succeed, the good news is that there's still hope for them.
There is, and I would say, again, that's the experience of most people, and it's my experience too. I mean, I've been prolific. I've done, we didn't just start out and own half of downtown Vegas. Before we got to that, we had dozens of projects where we optioned a piece of real estate and maybe we invested millions of dollars doing that, but it turned out that another piece of real estate was the one that the state decided to entitle with a gaming license. We lost out as many times as we won, but it was that experience that culminated in our being able to pull off a transaction that a lot of other people wish they had pulled off, but we did. So I don't know what to say. There's no bad experience. All experience is good experience, and it almost is part of that recipe. There are a few entrepreneurs. Take an Elon Musk. Seems like everything he touches is some amazing advancement for society, whether it be in space, whether it be in the brain, whether it be in communications, whether it be in automotive or manufacturing. It seems like, wow, how could someone do this time and time and time again? That's the exception. The rule is that most people never get up to bat. They don't take the chance to get up to bat. And so someone who gets up to bat should be honored. It's a risk. You put yourself out there to fail in front of other people. That's a risk. And there's only a small percentage of people that will do that. And then of those people, only a small percentage will break through and have some modicum of success. And then even a smaller amount will have a bigger amount of success. So when you look at that reality, you have to honor the process, and you have to be a believer in that process in order to play the role that we play.
I've seen quite a while back, I've seen this stupid, simple image somewhere on the internet where most of the people, when they think of success, to get to success, they think that's a straight line. You're nowhere, and now you're, in a happy place, and that's a straight line. While the reality is that the line is something like that. You go up, then you fail, then you go up again, and then you fail a little bit less, but you're like in a better place than initially.
Bartek, I've been in Las Vegas 35 years, plus or minus. And by the time I got to Vegas, which was in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, you had already gone through a wave of all the interesting and colorful people that had come mostly from different bookmaking jurisdictions in the country. They were run out of those jurisdictions because what they were doing was semi-illegal, and they came to Vegas as this oasis, this chance to do something legal, and those were pioneers. And that gave way to corporate players like we have now, the MGMs, the Caesars of the world, run by Wall Street, run by institutional investors. But I was part of that group that was still doing things the kind of family office way, the family way. And what I learned in Las Vegas was there were lots of people who came through town. They tried to do whatever they were going to do. They didn't succeed. They ran away because they thought, well, what are people going to think? I made such a big splash and I didn't do it. And then I realized, because I asked some of the old timers, what makes people stay? What makes people stay? And they said, a person who can fail, who can fall off his horse or her horse and get back on it the next day and ride again is the person that people want to pay attention to. And that has really stuck with me over these years. I give a lot of credit for people who have resilience, who have strength of character to take it on the chin and get up and do it again. And so, yes, we can talk about innovation. We can talk about specific topics like AI. All of these things are great. But the human condition, what people are capable of doing after they fail, is what I am most interested in the entrepreneurial process. And being in a place like Vegas, which is famous for making people and breaking people, and seeing that cycle is what has really instructed me in my approach and why I'm still excited after 35 years to get up every day and do it. I want to meet those people who are going to be the resilient people of the future, because those are the people that are going to make a difference.
And I suppose you've seen number of those failures, because you are in this unique situation where you are with them on the journey. And if you were to say what's the main reason why they fail?
It's look, they could come to me and have a great idea. We can support, but we're not. We can't do everything. Think about it from my perspective. I tell people, you come to me and I put a few bucks in your company and I own a few points. I don't control your company. So who should be up at night spending 93% or 95% of the nights up wondering how I'm going to compete, how I'm going to break through? Should it be me or should it be you? It shouldn't be me. I'm past that point. There was a time in my life where it was all on me. I was the one signing the checks. I was the one making sure the employees got paid. So it's on me to take that extra effort. But when it's on you, then you've got to step up and do it. And I say this to people, and what I would say is some people ultimately have the ability to break through and do it, and some people don't. I think what is really missing for those that don't do it is this whole notion of what it means to work hard and make something happen. Mm-hmm. I know what it is because I used to work literally 7 days a week for decades on end in different careers. And yes, I had sacrifices. It meant I wasn't always, I had 3 kids. I wasn't always at the soccer match or the baseball match. I decided that this was my passion and this was what I was going to focus on for my family. And that was my choice. But I missed a lot. I sacrificed. This is the word I have on each employee's desk, sacrifice. And you know what that means? Sacrifice means that you're giving up something that's good for something that's better. And most people will not sacrifice. And so if you're asking me why things succeed and why things don't, it's because of sacrifice.
Well, I think I do understand what you're trying to say here. Well, you're talking to the guy who's 40 years old, and I still don't have kids, while I spend like at least 12 hours a day working at my own company, trying to grow it and trying to make it better. But let me share with you some of my experience, and I'm curious what you're going to say about that, because I've been in a number of how would you call it, ventures with some people, trying to do some businesses together with them. And even though my experience is not as big as yours, I've been in a number of situations where you would think this new venture it has to work. There's no way that's going to fail. So I've been in situations where the idea was good or the idea was bad. With the bad idea, we told ourselves that, well, the idea doesn't really matter. It's all about execution, right? With the good idea, we're like, well, with this kind of idea, we just have to be successful. And then it appeared that idea is not enough, execution is not enough if your partners are basically dickheads, sorry about that, where I've learned the hard way that in some of the businesses, the people who want to make business with you, their goal is not to grow the company with you. Their goal is to kick you out of it the moment some money starts to flow. I've been in the situations where idea was good, people were good, everything was okay, but for some reason, at some point, it just disappeared. I mean, the motivation went down. We simply everybody got involved in something different, and it just slowly died. So what I'm trying to say here is that, at least from my perspective, the moment where I am right now with my experience and my story is there's no repeatable recipe that if you're gonna take those steps, you're gonna be successful for sure. And it's not enough to sit in the office room for 24/7 and sacrifice everything that you do and focus only on that one thing, and you're going to be successful for sure. There's this one ingredient which is missing here. And yeah, what's your take on that, brother?
Look, I think what you're describing is your personal experience. Mm-hmm. Having worked productively for, let's say, half of your career, you still got a lot more to go. Yeah. Is what most people's experience is. It's very hard to have all of these issues align, have a good idea, have a good execution, have good people who are working alongside you, making the same types of sacrifices that you're prepared to make. That's why 90% of these types of efforts don't succeed, okay? Does that mean that they're not worth going through? No, obviously. They're there for a reason. And what I like to tell people, and what wisdom teaches you once you're another 20 years into this, is it's okay to go through this, but the key is the sooner you then push that out and I'll tell a story because I think it's one of my favorite stories. I had a roommate in college, And he was a super, super talented, smart, biochemistry, was great at, he played in a Bruce Springsteen cover band. He had a good-looking girlfriend. He had everything. He was the golden child. And he had a dream, which was to produce a Broadway musical. So he had a partner, so someone who was his romantic interest and his creative partner. And over 15 years, they made a musical about chocolate. And then they brought it to, they tried to bring it to mainstream Broadway. It didn't work. Year after year after year, they had readings, this and that. So 20 years later, they finally brought it off Broadway. And lo and behold, that was the coincidental time that the reviewer for the New York Times decided to go. And that reviewer had a bad experience and wrote a very bad review. And so in an instant, after 20 years of effort, okay, this thing went down. And my friend called me up after, and he said, "Doc, I know you put a few bucks in, and I raised money from other people, and I feel bad, but we're not going to give up. We're not going to give up." And I said, "No, you should give up on this." I said, "What you should have learned is that it's okay to fail, but don't take 20 years to fail." Okay. Because now a lot of your productive, useful, creative life is gone, okay? And you've used it all up on this opportunity that should have been gone 15 years ago. And so there's the lesson. It's okay to fail. It's okay when the stars don't align, but the sooner you can push that out is the sooner you can let something good come back in.
But how do you know when?
Well, this is where you hope you have mentors and advisors and people around you who can be objective. Mm-hmm. When you have tunnel vision, when you have passion that is clouding your judgment, you have people around you who can say, "Hey, Bartek, what do you think about maybe this is telling you this, or maybe it's telling you this? What have you thought about it? What do you think you should do at this point?" Someone who you would trust. And this is why I think it's important that you surround yourself not just with people who will be troops ready to go to battle with you, but people who will say, "Hey, Bartek, what do you think about maybe not going forward on this, or doing something different, or maybe not working with so-and-so the next time around and doing something different?" We when we're involved and in the trenches, we're not always objective, is what I would say.
Definitely, yeah.
And I think there's a word I haven't used up until now, but I'll use it because ego, obviously it means a lot of things. Ego can be a good thing because it gives you the fortitude to go in and do something. But for the most part, ego is a bad thing for the most part, because what it does is it clouds you from being objective about a situation, good or bad. And so whenever I would say a deal has gone south for me, 90% of the time it's because of some ego. Maybe it was somebody I didn't see it before and all of a sudden it came out. A lot of times it happens when it looks like you're about to make some real money or something good is about to happen. All of a sudden someone's true nature comes out, the greed, I've
seen that number of times, yeah.
and it's, of course, you're like, wow, I didn't know that person was that way. Mm-hmm. So I would say, look, this is always the wild card, whether you're employing someone, whether you're partnering with someone. The people issue is always the wild card. Mm-hmm. You'd like to think people are steady and going to give you the same thing every day, but they don't. Yeah. Oftentimes.
And they do change over time.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody that you trusted 10 years ago isn't the same person today, right?
So I will say this, though, just in general about the gaming industry, we're getting ready to go to, for me, it's my 21st ICE. So that's a milestone of sorts in Barcelona. What I would say about our industry, whether it's the brick and mortar part, which I worked in mostly in the beginning of my career, or it's the iGaming part, which is certainly more global in reach, what I do find overall is that the people we work with have some very positive characteristics. They're innovative. They tend to be fun because they're in the entertainment business, which is what we're in. We're making content. We're making games. We're distributing them through sophisticated technology platforms. We're developing things. We're adding features that other industries use to create, competitive factors. Look, all of this is great, but what I do find is that in general, we're starting with a group of people that, that you say, I'm glad to be part of this industry. I enjoy working with people in my industry. This isn't always the case in other industries, in other professions, but I would say that's one unique thing. We go to trade show. Some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, some of them are regional, but I would say through 35 years, that's been the remarkable thing. It's not about having a certain education or going to a certain graduate school or undergraduate school or university. It's just about people who are in an industry where there's a lot of collegiality and coming together and sharing of ideas. Yes, there's competition below the surface, but there's a lot more commonality of purpose that I have found over the years. And I think that's a plus for what we do.
That's quite the opposite experience to what I tend to see. To be fair, to be honest with you, because at least my impression is that everybody's talking about innovation at least in iGaming, sector. But when you look at the most popular, the biggest online casinos, they rarely change. The technology and the value that they provide to the players, it's basically the same as it was like 5 or 10 years ago. I do have some experience from different verticals than iGaming. And just to give you an example, with development studios here in Poland, what we did is we created the platform to exchange the know-how and exchange to help each other to grow our businesses. So we tend to meet, founders of those companies and high-level managers of those companies. We tend to meet once a month and we exchange the ideas. And I tried to implement that into iGaming. And I tried to do that between game studios. Nobody was interested because everybody said, I'm not going to give you my know-how. You're my competition. I will never share it with you. So that's quite the opposite.
Look, I think that's maybe a little bit different. If you remember, as much time as I've spent in iGaming, that came about in the U.S. In 2018. So up until that time, it was a brick and mortar environment and still is in the U.S. Globally, iGaming's been along as long as there's been smartphones.
Yeah.
Okay, mobile technology. Yeah. And it's a slightly different universe of people and a different geography. I would say from my U.S. experience, for sure, brick and mortar, lots of collegiality. But the reality is you have 6 or 7 major corporate players. Innovation is hard when you have big organizations. You have to go to mom and pops and small players who innovate. As it relates to iGaming, I would say that is a criticism. What you've said is a criticism. People tell me they go to all these conferences, they listen to all the panels, but no one ever gives real use cases. No one ever really gives the goods.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fair criticism and something that should change about our industry. I think people should be more forthcoming. I think the same collegiality that I've noticed working in the brick and mortar world should apply to a digital world, even as competitive as it might appear. So I think that's a very fair point. I would make a distinction a little bit between brick and mortar and digital experiences, but I do think that it's a similar thing in digital, that the innovation, once someone's invested in a platform, I'll use as an example, I do a lot of work with a company called Smartico. They're relatively new from Bulgaria, Eastern Europe, and they said, you know what, rather than disconnecting CRM from gamification, let's make gamification part and parcel of the CRM. And so they really invested heavily in those social layers and that gamification layer. And now they have thousands of customers in the course of 3 years, 4 years of just steady growth. company like Optimove always had like the Mercedes of CRM, but never invested the same amount in gamification. So it took an upstart to see an opportunity and capture what the market was looking for. They were looking for CRM light. They wanted more gamification, more engagement than they wanted all this heavy CRM. Because you can communicate all you want with the customer, but if you're not giving them something that they want to engage with, what's the point? So I guess I would say that, they probably didn't sit down and share their plan. They just kind of developed it and saw an opportunity. And what will likely happen is, someone, as often happens, someone will acquire something that's working at some point and say, okay, they figured out how to skin the cat differently, so I'm going to go acquire it. This is the world of M&A that we live in. But I think your point is very well taken. It's a criticism that I do hear, particularly as it relates to the content that's put forth at trade shows. Many people feel it's not enough sharing. It's not enough of that type of ethic. And I think it's a fair point, and something that should change.
Mm-hmm. You used the keyword M&A.
Yeah.
And I gotta ask, because I have this rare opportunity of talking to the guy who've been a part of this kind of processes number of times, and trying to give some piece of advice to let's say a founder who's at the stage where maybe he has a product, maybe he has a service already, and he's looking for some kind of investment. What are the typical pitfalls or typical problems that you see in that process?
Look, I think we've been involved in dozens and dozens and dozens of processes, whether it's taking capital in, looking for strategic partners or strategic funding, looking to be acquired, or looking to acquire. We're involved now in a process. A very big public company, and they might hire us to do research on all the markets in the world in order to get a roadmap as to what companies they should look at to acquire. So we've been involved in it in all layers. Obviously, something that is creating revenue and is doing it with a good margin, so the business model's working, showing promise that it can scale with more investment, run by people who are showing the ability to have a stable management team, be able to attract talent, be able to assemble advisors that are, first class. These are all good elements. These are people who can be transparent. I can't emphasize enough the importance of putting it all out there, even things that may not be as supportive to your thesis. So these are things that give either acquirers or investors confidence. Obviously, depending upon at what stage you're at, there's different types of investors. So understanding that there are different types of investors for different stages of your growth. This is what I would say. But I would say the processes that are successful, yes, good business, unique selling features of the business, scalability. But the number one issue that I see is transparency. Investors and acquirers need to know that what they're being told is straight, the information ties together, and it's complete. Mm-hmm. This would be the number one thing I would say. Is transparency in the process.
All right, so let's take a different angle. Mm-hmm. And let's say, hypothetically, let's say there's a prodigy guy being all committed to what he does, and he's capable of doing whatever in any region of the world. Do you have any feeling or any kind of recommendation for this kind of person? What kind of service, what kind of product, what kind of geo, what kind of thing is a nice area to start a startup in?
Look, sometimes we are involved in that analysis. Sometimes it's for our own part because there are times, much like yourself, sometimes we're providing a service either on behalf of a B2B or a B2C brand, or sometimes we're supporting them in their sales and marketing efforts in different markets. But sometimes we're actually producing a product. Recently, we decided, for example, to use AI in a creative way to bring a compliance product to the marketplace that consolidates or aggregates different solutions for KYC and geolocation and various issues involved in the financial transactions and accountability of those transactions. So sometimes we're involved in actually doing the products ourselves. Sometimes people come to us and say, look, I had this happen recently. It was an Asian company. They're a big supplier in Asia, which is largely an unregulated market, but they said, we want to make a transition to regulated markets. Can you tell us the pros and cons? Can you give us the rankings? Can you give us the considerations? So as a management company and one that does research and so forth, we're often involved in supporting people's information gathering in order to make the decision as to what to do. It could be an entrepreneur. It could with an idea and wants us to support. It could be a company, established company, that just wants different perspectives. And so I would say this information gathering process and the fact that we participate in so many jurisdictions is useful because it's a big market. And for example, right now, one of the areas that we're getting more and more inquiries is the Middle East, MENA, because there's been some high-profile activity out of the Emirates, big companies going in there, big licenses being issued, and big potential. A few years back, there was a lot of talk about Brazil, and we'd been there over 10 years doing different things. Whether it's lived up to the potential is a story that depends upon what your vantage point is. For some people it has, and for others it's been a disappointment. Obviously America, over 100 companies came to America, largely from Europe, and then about 100 companies left. So that was an exercise, and we advised a lot of them, and lots of money was invested, but sometimes you have tea leaves and sometimes you don't. Did we know that the market would just stop developing and that it would consolidate so quickly? No, nobody knew. If everyone knew, then the money wouldn't have been invested to begin with. So I guess that's a way of saying you can have information, but that doesn't mean when you're looking at emerging markets that you have all the tea leaves in the world. There are still uncertainties with respect to regulation. Like, look what's happening in Europe, the retrenchment in places like the UK, where now they're making it extremely difficult for people to do business. That was a highly successful market that's now has new leadership and is now going the opposite direction. So we don't know all the answers all the time, but there is a process we can go through.
And referring to what you said before, it's okay to try and fail.
Yes.
Right, gotcha. All right, just one last topic for today.
Okay.
Since I have, not often, I do host anybody in Europe who's originating from Vegas. And we all know Vegas, right? However, I've learned recently that last year for Vegas, brick and mortar wasn't really that good. That not that many people came over. They didn't leave as much money as they would typically do. You're way closer to Vegas than I am. Why is that? What's going on?
Look, Vegas, I think we can all agree Vegas is a very unique place. Even with Macau, which is literally, Macau is about 5 to 6 times bigger than Vegas in terms of revenue and profitability. Even with other markets that are opening up or potentially opening up, like Brazil may open up brick and mortar. There still is an undisputed leader in terms of innovation, in terms of being a destination. So at the same time that Vegas saw what was effectively a 10% drop month over month for months on end, it's about 7 or 8 months on end of a visitor count. It's still in the tens of millions, but it's dropping.
Yeah.
So your observation is correct. At the same time, we hosted Formula One. We hosted the Super Bowl. We have a new baseball stadium being constructed. We delivered a new NFL stadium. We have one of the leading hockey teams in the world playing in our city. We have events and musicians, and we have the Sphere, bringing in some of the most innovative acts and attractions.
It's amazing, by the way. The Sphere is like something else. Yeah.
So what I would say, 35 years in Vegas, you can never count Vegas out. It's a very resilient place. It's still a very unique place. And so the people who are writing about the demise of Vegas are clearly wrong. There's no precedent for saying that. There's no basis for that. But there is an underlying issue, and the issue has to do structurally with the following fact, which is during COVID, business was never better. For years, there was money that was being pumped into the economy, not only in the U.S., but in Europe and everywhere else. Mm-hmm. That was free money for people. And so there were people coming to Vegas who had never come before. Maybe they shouldn't have been coming. They were using government money, and they were gambling or partaking in the venues. And because they were so happy to be out of their situation and come and have some fun, they weren't needing the same type of service standard. They weren't looking for the same deal. They were just happy to spend the government's money in Vegas. Well, that ended about a year ago. There was a large overhang for that. So when it ended, two things happened. The casino companies who had gotten used to such high profit margins now saw their margins getting less because the customer that was coming was the more traditional customer who wanted more service. And the second thing was it wasn't easy money anymore. They couldn't fleece people for this fee and that fee and that fee. And people were rebelling and saying, you know what, I could go to Europe for cheaper. I could go to Greece or Italy or a cruise cheaper than I can come to Vegas for 4 or 5 days. So structurally, there wasn't an adjustment by the city to this new reality, I should say the old reality. And because of that, we got caught flat-footed. Now, they're making adjustments. The Las Vegas Visitors and Convention Bureau put up tens and tens of millions of dollars to incentivize players to come back. The casino companies are revisiting some of their fee policy to make it more affordable. And so you're starting to see room rates go back up to where they should be. You're starting to see occupancies be where they should be. Is it going to happen overnight? No. But I would say after 35 years, when people have previously looked at the demise of Vegas after 9/11, after we had a shooting at Mandalay Bay that killed a bunch of people, we had a fire at MGM in the 80s or 90s that people said, oh, look at this tragedy. The truth is that city is more resilient than these individual actions. So I would say that it is an issue. There's reasons for the issue. They're addressing the issue. But I think in terms of the long-term viability of Vegas as a destination, still unmatched in the world.
All right. So it's healing. It's not that land-based casinos are gone because everybody went online already. It's not that nobody likes Vegas anymore. It's just a hiccup.
I will say that when you speak to the leaders and people who've been around as long as I have who care about the city, they do feel that a time will come. I've had this discussion recently. A time will come when we can't help it. The next generation won't have as much disposable income potentially, or they won't want to spend it in a casino-style setting. And so we'll have to think about ways to make the casino relevant. I think it's fair to say that movie theaters never have returned to the luster that they once had, because people can get so much content so easily on their device or at home. But I think a casino still offers, particularly one that's in a local environment or in a destination, still offers something that people can get together and congregate and take advantage of activity that is entertainment in orientation, or restaurants or events, etc. It's not just about the gambling. Many of the people that I talk to in Vegas who think about the future think we have to come up with ways to more easily bring the content that people enjoy. For example, could you see a situation where you have sim racers, you have head-to-head golf simulators, you have different types of skill contests, and people are going head-to-head competing for money? Could you see that? Probably.
Yeah.
So I often used to spend more time thinking about it when I was more involved in the brick and mortar world, but there are plenty of people who are involved in the brick and mortar world who have an eye towards what can you do to keep the box, the retail box, relevant in a world that's going more and more mobile, even in the U.S. So I'm optimistic, and I tend to look at these technologies in their incubation. And the one thing I would say is, unfortunately for me, my kids who grew up around casinos, with a dad in the casino business, not all of them feel that wasting your money in a casino and losing it is the stupidest thing you could do. So I don't even have kids who would be consumers of the future. I can't even ask them what they would do, although they don't mind coming to Vegas to see, the Grateful Dead revival, or some, John Mayer, playing at the Sphere. So I would still say Vegas draws people, and casinos draw people, but maybe not for the gaming or the sports betting, because the next generation just feels like that's maybe not the value that they want to get out of a casino.
You just made me realize that my strongest memory from my first visit in Vegas, which was like roughly around 3 years ago, is not really gambling. And don't get me wrong, I gambled a lot. But that was Cirque du Soleil show, which I saw for the first time in my life then, in one of the amazing scenes over there in one of the hotels. I don't quite remember which one was that now. So yeah, that's...
Well, it's about making memories, and I still feel like even with all the content you can get on a smartphone, people still like to come together to create memories. And I guess as someone who's been part of this industry and seen it evolve, I believe in the power of the industry to bring a product to the market that will appeal to as many people as possible. So I'm optimistic.
Well, you're American, so
Yes,
you are optimistic.
I am indeed.
That's one of the major differences between Americans and Polish people.
Yes, it's okay. I think we were talking beforehand that my family roots are in this region. Last time I took a blood test, 99% of my blood comes from this region of the world. So I guess that means that somewhere in that blood is positivity.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
And as we talked before, you're also quite a quick learner of language.
Yes.
So
you're trying to school me, and we're gonna, I think, enjoy some Polish food after our taping
Yes,
here,
sir.
which I'm looking forward to. And I'm doing more and more business in Poland. I think it cannot be overstated that Poland in the iGaming industry is moving up the charts in terms of its influence.
It is.
And I suspect this will be one of many future trips. Maybe on a regular basis, I'll go to Barcelona, but beforehand, I'll stop in Poland to see industry folks and people like yourself who are making a difference.
You're always welcome here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Stephen Crystal. Thank you.
Thank you, Bartek.